Hello, this is Tasha from Sensi, and I'm going to read for you today part 2 of the Aardvark who wasn't sure. So in part 1 we met Pim, the little Aardvark, and part 2 he's going to be going out with his mum this evening. So let's catch up on his adventures. That night, Mrs. Aardvark took Pim with her on a feeding trip across the grounds. They went a different way this time. They passed through a belt of trees, or what had once been a belt of trees. Lots of them had been rooted up and thrown to the ground, and those that were still standing had had their bark stripped off. There were broken branches everywhere. Pim stopped and stared around him. What could have done this? Something huge. Elephants, said his mother. Oh, they are messy eaters. Come on, we'll go round the edge. Eaters, said Pim, following his mother. Do they eat aardvarks? No, just grass and branches and tree bark and things, but they will throw it around so. If they fancy a branch that they can't reach, they just uproot the whole tree just to get at it. Elephants must be very strong, said Pim, imagining a sort of giant baboon pulling up trees with its hands. I don't think I want to meet an elephant. The termite nest, which his mother chose for her dinner, was near a river. Pim watched his mother tearing at the nest for a while, but an interesting smell from the river drew him like a magnet. Soon he was bumbling along by the river bank, snuffling busily. He had to watch out for tree roots, which seemed to be spread out everywhere to trip him up. A tree loomed up ahead of him, and he stepped sideways to go around it. That was funny. Pim stopped dead. The tree had moved. Pim shook his head briskly. Trees didn't move. He looked over his shoulder. There were 4 trees moving towards him. This was too much. Pim was going back to his mother. He was about to bolt when a voice above his head said,
Hello!
Something nuzzled his ear. Pim looked up. 2 little eyes were looking down at him. A long, long nose. Behind this face were 2 great ears and a huge body with, yes, the trees were the animal's legs. Hello, said Pim warily. He was still ready to run. What are you?
I'm an elephant.
Said the strange creature.
A baby elephant.
A baby elephant? Said Pim, his eyes wide. Your mother must be enormous.
Well, she is quite big,
said the baby elephant.
I stand underneath her for shade when the sun is hot, but What are you?
An aardvark, said Pim.
An odd what?
The elephant said. He explored Pim with his trunk.
You're certainly an odd something.
An aardvark, Pim said. You can talk anyway. You've got a very odd, dangly nose. Stop tickling me,
Sorry.
said the elephant, withdrawing his trunk and holding it up.
This is my trunk. I always use it for exploring odd, well, I mean, new things. It's very strong too. Watch.
He coiled his trunk around a small tree and yanked it right out of the ground, roots and all. Oh, so that's how you do it, Pim said. I thought that you must have hands like baboons for pulling things up with. He looked at the tree on the ground. Aren't you going to eat it?
Eat it? No,
said the elephant.
I still have milk from my mum.
Me too, said Pim. He looked at his strange new friend. Do elephants have holes?
Holes?
Said the elephant.
What would I need a hole for?
Well, to be safe in. Aren't you afraid of anything? You know, lions and things? The baby elephant drew himself up very tall.
The elephant is the king of the beasts. He is afraid of nothing,
he said proudly. He then grinned down at Pim.
Or so my auntie says. Actually, lions do attack baby elephants sometimes, and that's why I'm supposed to stay close to either my auntie or my mum.
He looked towards the river where there were splashing noises.
I better get back to them. They're crossing the river. Would you like to come and see me off?
Pim said that he would, and that's how he came to watch a herd of elephants at bath time. There seemed to be elephants everywhere, squirting themselves and each other with water and churning up the mud with their huge feet. Pim's friend could hardly wait to join them with a cheery
Bye!
He slid down the slippery mud bank and landed in the water with a great splash. A huge elephant, it must have been his mother, splooshed up to him, spanked him with her trunk and sprayed him all over with water. Pim's friend squealed and pretended to try and run away, but he was pulled back and squirted again and again and again. He was obviously enjoying himself hugely. Pim was too, as his mother saw when she found him a little later on. He was watching his friend being tugged up the steep bank on the other side of the river by his mother, whilst another elephant shoved him from behind. They were having quite a job getting him up the slippery slope. The king of the beasts was just a baby. So there you are, Pim's mother said. Look at you. You're covered with mud. What have you been doing? I got a bit splashed, that's all. Elephants are messy bathers as well as messy eaters. Oh, look, they've got him up at last. His friend, who was tired after his difficult scramble, had grasped his mother's tail with his trunk. She pulled him after her into the scrub. Pim sighed. He was tired too. He turned to his mother. She had a lovely big tail, bigger than Mrs. Elephant's. "Why haven't I got a trunk?" he said wistfully. "Because," she said, "you're an aardvark. Come on, let's go home." And off they went. It was a long way home, and Pim was very tired. He found it difficult to keep up with his mother, although she did try to go slowly. At last he stopped altogether, and she had to go back for him. "Come on, Pim," she said. "It isn't far now." "My legs are squashing my feet," he wailed, "and my tail's very heavy." "Oh dear," she said. "I forget how new you are. I know what we'll do. You don't need to go any further. We'll make a new burrow right here. It seems a good place." While Pim blinked his tired eyes, she began to dig and dig and dig. In a few minutes, the front half of her disappeared into the ground, and soon only her tail remained. And this was disappearing fast. Was Pim going to be left all by himself? He was just going to tug at her tail to remind her that he was there when Mrs. Aardvark backed out suddenly and nearly knocked him over. "I hadn't forgotten you," she said, seeing his face. "Come on, Sleepy. You'll be quite safe in here." She began to push him into the hole that she had made. "Is this it?" said Pim. "Is this the new burrow?" He didn't think much to it. "No, of course it isn't. This is just a safe place where I can leave you while I'm busy digging. Now, tuck your tail in, and I'll come and fetch you when our new home is ready." So Pim curled up, snout to tail, in the shallow hole and went to sleep. It was nearly light when his mother woke him up. "Come on," she said, "home." I thought we weren't going home," said Pim, stretching and coming out of the little hole. "Not the old home, this new one," his mother said. "Here we are. It's right next door." There was an entrance tunnel and then a big, roomy burrow beyond. In fact, it was exactly the same as their old home. "Do you like it?" Pim's mother asked. "Yes," said Pim. "It has a nice fresh smell." He settled down by his mother for his feed. So do you." "Yes, I probably do smell and taste a little bit earthy," laughed his mother. "I'm glad you like it." Pim was soon full of warm milk. He stopped sucking, so his mouth was now free to ask questions. "Will I be able to dig a burrow like this?" "Yes, dear. All aardvarks are good diggers if they have enough sleep, that is." Pim opened his mouth but shut it again. He could take the hint. He put his snout to tail and went to sleep. He slept and slept, and then, when he did wake up, he felt very lively. He couldn't wait to practice digging. How could he be a proper aardvark until he could dig? He must start now. And there was a good place to begin. The shelter that his mother had made the night before. There was one snag, though. His mother was still fast asleep. So he couldn't ask her permission. Well, his plan was a safe one. He was sure that she wouldn't mind. He crept past her and into the tunnel. He was surprised to find that it was still light outside. In fact, it was only late afternoon, but that made no difference to his plan. He sat on his tail and put up his ears and listened carefully. It seemed to be safe. He scampered over to the shallow burrow and went inside. Yes, the earth was still nice and soft. He stretched out his forefeet with their powerful claws and began to dig. Oh, this was easy. But after a little while, he began to realize that it was not as easy as all that. He soon found that he had a pile of earth under his tummy which got in the way. What did he do with it? The further forward he burrowed, the more earth he had piled up around him, under him, and behind him. It had to go somewhere. Then he remembered the shower of earth he'd had to dodge when he was watching his mother digging. She had kicked it out behind her with her hind legs. Pim began to kick, but he had left it too late. His mother kicked it out behind her as she went along, so she had more of a manageable amount to deal with. Pim already had a small mountain. He kicked harder and harder, but only succeeded in, burying himself in it. Poor Pim! He lay still, panting. Now, what was he going to do? He had blocked the way out behind him. He would have to turn around and burrow his way out. When he felt strong enough, he would begin. But what was that? There was something moving outside, just above him. Something with a strong smell. He had never smelt it before, but he knew what it was. Big cat smell. A leopard or a lion? It was the smell of danger. Pim froze. He was only just underground. If the big cat heard him, it could probably reach him. Pim didn't want to end up as a tasty tea for a lion. But now he was really stuck. He dare not burrow any deeper into the ground because he was such a rotten digger. And anyway, he might be heard. He couldn't go back to the surface and make a dive for his safe den with the big cat wandering about up there. He was trapped. He would have to stay here until it was safe to come out. Suddenly, his ears pricked up and quivered. There were scraping sounds in the earth in front of him. Was the lion coming down for him that way? Pim was so frightened that he couldn't think anymore. He just crouched and shivered with his eyes shut, while the sound got nearer and nearer and nearer. Something burst through the wall of the earth in front of him. It was upon him. Pim? His mother's voice whispered. I guessed you were here. Come on, I've made a tunnel. In a few moments, Pim was safe in his burrow, cuddled close to his mother. He told her all about what had happened and how he had thought that she was a lion coming for him. Lions are rotten diggers, his mother said. Anyway, what's this for? She tweaked his trembling snout. If you had used this, you would have known it was me and not the lion. Well, never mind. It's all over now. Come on, have your feed. Pim snuggled close to her and found a teat to suck. But before he took it in his mouth, he said, "Are you sure I'm an aardvark?" "Yes," said his mother, "quite sure." "Well, you said all aardvarks are good diggers." "You were wrong. I'm a terrible digger." Mrs. Aardvark smiled. "Well, I should have said, except when they're very young. You haven't been taught to dig yet. I'll give you a lesson tomorrow." "And then I'll be a proper aardvark?" said Pim. "Pim, you are a proper aardvark. Nothing can change that." But Pim wasn't absolutely sure. So that's the end of part 2. And I will see you next time for part 3. Bye-bye.